Your methods are too traditional for our new direction, Garrett. Veronica Bennett, our CEO of 6 months, explained coolly. Her voice, like the new glass-walled boardroom she'd had installed, was sleek and devoid of warmth. We need digital-first leadership. My name is Garrett Walsh, and for 15 years, I ran the Midwest sales division of Oaklight Publishing right here in Indianapolis. I built that team from scratch, turning a struggling territory into the company's undisputed top revenue generator. I didn't do it with fancy software or complex algorithms. I did it with relationships, handshakes, and an almost encyclopedic knowledge of which publishers needed what, often before they even knew it themselves. By last year, my division was proudly bringing in 60% of Oaklight's entire revenue. Not that anyone at the executive level seemed to notice, until the quarterly reports landed on their desks. Veronica, however, with her presentations full of tech industry buzzwords and her entourage of expensive consultants from San Francisco, saw things differently. I was, in her eyes, a relic. The summons to her office had come on a Monday morning. Her assistant, Jason, looked distinctly uncomfortable when he appeared at my office door. She'd like to see you at 2, Garrett, in the executive boardroom. I'd just been finalizing a 5-year contract extension with Thomas Franklin of Franklin Press, our biggest client, a $12 million deal born from a decade of quarterly dinners and mutual trust. 15 years, about to end in a 15-minute meeting. If you've ever felt like your experience and hard-won success were dismissed by new management chasing a fleeting trend, then this story of how one man turned a corporate pink slip into a publishing revolution might just be for you. Don't forget to subscribe to Life Stories for more. Your opinion is crucial for us to enhance our video quality. If you enjoyed this video, please comment 1. If you weren't satisfied, please comment 0, so we can make improvements in future productions. Thank you. The redesigned boardroom was a monument to Veronica Bennett's vision. Minimalist furniture, that massive digital display where the old mahogany conference table used to be, and those infernal glass walls that made everyone feel like they were in a fishbowl. 3 people waited for me: Veronica, her ever-present assistant Jason, and someone I didn't recognize from human resources, clutching a folder. I knew before Veronica even spoke. Garrett, thank you for everything you've done for Oaklight Publishing, she began, her hands clasped neatly on the table, her gaze carefully avoiding mine. But we've decided to move in a different direction with our sales leadership. I listened quietly as she explained, with a series of well-rehearsed corporate phrases, how my methods were outdated, how the company needed someone more aligned with their digital-first approach, someone younger, though she skillfully avoided saying that precise word out loud. I simply thanked her for the opportunity she was now rescinding, shook her offered hand, a brief, cool touch, and walked out without arguing, without pleading. What Veronica, in her Silicon Valley wisdom, didn't understand was that in publishing, especially with the old established houses that made up 80% of our business, trust wasn't built through algorithms or automated email campaigns. It was built over years, through shared successes and weathered challenges, through understanding the heart and soul of each publisher's unique list. I cleared out my desk while the rest of the team was at lunch. No dramatic goodbyes, no disruptive scene, just quiet dignity. But when I got to my car in the parking garage, I sat there for a long time, the silence deafening, staring at my phone. 3 missed calls already from Thomas Franklin. He'd heard. News, especially bad news, travels fast in the publishing world. I started at Oaklight back when it was still called Midwestern Literary Partners. A small, scrappy operation then, just 20 employees and a handful of regional clients. I'd come to them from Heritage Books in New York after they were bought out by one of the big impersonal publishing conglomerates. I'd walked away from a corner office and a 6-figure salary because I hated what corporate publishing was doing to the industry, how it was squeezing the life out of the very books it was supposed to champion. Robert Oaklight, the founder of Midwestern Literary, hired me personally. "We don't need someone who can just crunch numbers, Garrett," he'd said during my interview, his eyes alight with a passion for books that I instantly recognized. "We need someone who understands that books are still made by people, for people, Someone who cares about what's actually between the covers. For the first 5 years, I practically lived out of my car, rebuilding the Midwest division from scratch. I put 70,000 miles on that old sedan, visiting every independent publisher, every small press, every university imprint between Ohio and Nebraska. I knew the names of their spouses, their kids. I went to their weddings, their parents' funerals, their retirement parties. Not because it was some calculated strategic move, but because that's who we were then. That's how business, real business, was done. By the time Robert retired and his son William took over as CEO, we'd grown our revenue by 400%. William, bless his heart, understood the business. He might have been more interested in the numbers than his father had been, a bit more corporate. But he respected what I'd built, and he largely left me alone to run things my way. 3 years ago, when some of the newer board members started talking about bringing in outside leadership to modernize operations and prepare for a digital future, William fought them. He defended the way we did business, the relationships we'd nurtured. But when cancer took William from us last year, far too young at 58, there was no one left on that board to champion the old ways, no one left to defend the human element in an increasingly data-driven world. The cracks started appearing long before Veronica Bennett was even hired. Board meetings where the word antiquated kept coming up in relation to my division. Pointed questions about why our sales team hadn't fully leveraged social media, or why we hadn't implemented the latest CRM optimization software. Jacob, my bright young assistant director, the one I'd been carefully grooming to take over my role one day, started getting invitations to high-level strategy meetings that I wasn't included in. He'd report back to me, clearly uncomfortable with his new, unwilling position as a corporate messenger. "They're talking about a major restructuring, Garrett," he'd told me privately about 6 months ago, his voice low. "Creating a new separate digital sales team, pulling resources from the traditional channels." I should have seen it coming then, should have recognized the signs, should have noticed when they hired 3 new digital engagement specialists, all young, all from outside publishing, all reporting directly to Veronica's new strategy chief, and put them ostensibly on my team, without so much as consulting me. Or when they started unilaterally reassigning some of my longest-term, most loyal clients to this new, untested digital team. Without any explanation or discussion, Thomas Franklin had called me personally furious when they'd taken his account away from me. "Some kid called me today, Garrett," he'd fumed. "Told me he was my new account manager. Said Oaklight was streamlining their customer interface or some other corporate nonsense. What in the hell is going on over there?" "Just some internal reorganization, Thomas," I told him, trying to sound reassuring, trying to smooth things over. "Nothing for you to worry about." But I was worried, deeply worried. I just didn't know how to fight a battle when I didn't even understand the weapons that were being used against me. The day after my termination from Oaklight Publishing, I sat in my quiet home office, staring at my silent phone, or rather, a phone that had been anything but silent. 17 missed calls, 32 text messages, 6 emails marked urgent, all from clients, industry contacts, old friends, all reacting to the news of my sudden departure, news that had clearly spread like wildfire. I hadn't told anyone yet, not even my wife, Catherine, who was visiting our daughter in Columbus for the week. I wanted to process it alone first, to try and make sense of 15 years of dedication being dismissed in 15 minutes. The call that finally made me pick up, the one I knew I couldn't ignore, came from Thomas Franklin of Franklin Press. "Garrett, what in the hell happened yesterday?" he demanded, skipping any pretense of a greeting. His voice, usually so calm and measured, was tight with anger. "They're going in a new direction, Thomas," I said, the corporate euphemism tasting like ash in my mouth. "A digital-first direction." Thomas spat out a curse. "Digital first? Garrett, you are that company to most of us. Do those idiots in the boardroom even understand that? Do they have any clue what you've built?" I didn't answer. There was nothing I could say that he didn't already know. "I met with that new kid yesterday," Thomas continued, his voice still raw with frustration. The one they reassigned my account to after they sidelined you. He spent 40 damn minutes showing me analytics dashboards and customer engagement metrics. Not once, Garrett, not once did he ask about our new historical fiction imprint. The one I told you personally was make or break for us this year. The one we were counting on your expertise to launch successfully. I closed my eyes, a wave of weariness washing over me, a tiredness so profound it had nothing to do with lack of sleep. They'll figure it out, Thomas, I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. They have their new strategies, their consultants. No, they won't, Garrett, he retorted sharply. Because people like that, the ones who only see spreadsheets and algorithms, they never bother to learn what truly matters in this business. They just impose their generic system and expect everyone and every unique situation to magically adapt. It doesn't work that way. Not in publishing, not with relationships built on years of trust. After we hung up, I finally opened my laptop and looked at the email Oaklight HR had sent with my severance details. 6 months' pay, health insurance coverage for 90 days, a standard non-disparagement clause preventing me from speaking ill of the company, and, most significantly, a stringent non-compete clause that, on its face, prevented me from working with any of Oaklight's current or recent clients, or in any similar publishing sales capacity within a 500-mile radius for a period of 1 year. I nearly laughed out loud. They actually thought they could legally prevent decades-old relationships, friendships forged in the trenches of countless book fairs and contract negotiations, from continuing with a single, boilerplate legal document. My phone buzzed again. Eleanor Jenkins from Riverstone Press this time. Another major client, another friendship built over years of mutual respect and shared successes. Garrett, I just heard, she said, her voice warm with genuine concern. It's their loss, my friend, a monumental loss. When you're ready to talk about what's next, you call me, anytime. By evening, I'd heard from 12 of my major long-term clients, publishers who, combined, represented over 40% of Oaklight Publishing's total annual revenue. Every single one of them expressed the same sentiment: shock, disappointment with Oaklight's decision, and unwavering loyalty to me personally, not to the company I would no longer be a part of. I sat in my backyard as the Indiana sun began to set, nursing a bourbon, the calls and messages finally tapering off. An idea, a tiny seed that had been planted that morning with Thomas Franklin's angry call, had begun to take root, had grown stronger and more defined with each subsequent conversation. They had discarded me, Veronica Bennett, and her board, because my methods didn't fit their shiny new digital strategy, because I built relationships instead of just analyzing data, because my client book was filled with handwritten notes about publishers' families and favorite authors instead of soulless CRM entries. But what if those supposedly outdated methods, that deep personal engagement, were exactly what those clients valued most? What if the very thing Veronica Bennett saw as my greatest weakness was, in fact, my most profound and enduring strength? What if the old blood still had a vital role to play in this rapidly changing industry? I pulled out my phone and made a call, not to another client, but to my attorney, Benjamin Weiss, a sharp, pragmatic lawyer who'd handled my father's estate and a few other personal matters for me over the years. Ben, I said when he answered, I need you to look at something for me. A non-compete clause. They let you go, Garrett? He asked, genuine surprise in his voice. Everyone knew my history with Oaklight. They did, Ben, I confirmed, a slow smile spreading across my face, the first genuine smile I'd felt in days. And you know what? I think it might just be the best thing that's ever happened to me. I didn't want revenge. I wasn't interested in trying to bring Oaklight down. I just wanted to keep doing what I'd always done, helping good publishers connect with the right partners, helping them bring important books to readers. And if Oaklight Publishing no longer valued that service, well, it was becoming abundantly clear that there were plenty of others who still did. That night, for the first time since that fateful termination meeting, I slept soundly, a sense of purpose, a new direction, beginning to form in my mind. 2 weeks after my termination, I met with Benjamin Weiss in his downtown Indianapolis office. He'd meticulously reviewed the non-compete agreement Oaklight Publishing had included in my severance package, and he had news I hadn't entirely expected, though I'd harbored a hopeful suspicion. "It's essentially unenforceable, Garrett," Benjamin said, sliding the document across his polished mahogany desk towards me. He tapped a few highlighted clauses. "They made several crucial mistakes. The scope of activities it attempts to restrict is far too broad. The geographic limitation, 500 miles, is unreasonably extensive for this industry. The duration of 1 year, while sometimes acceptable, is questionable when combined with the other overreaching clauses. And most importantly," he emphasized, "they can't legally prevent you from using your general knowledge, skills, and experience gained in your industry, nor can they prevent you from accepting work from clients who independently choose to seek you out after your employment with Oaklight has ended." "So," I said, a sense of cautious optimism beginning to bloom, "I could theoretically start my own consulting firm, working with publishers?" "You absolutely could," Benjamin nodded. "But there's a catch, Garrett, and it's a big one. Even if the non-compete is ultimately deemed unenforceable by a court, Oaklight, with their deep pockets and aggressive new CEO, will almost certainly still sue you if you try to work with any of their significant former clients, especially if it looks like you solicited them. They might not win in the long run, but they can make the legal process incredibly expensive, time-consuming, and personally painful for you. They can try to bleed you dry with legal fees, tie you up in depositions for months." I considered this. Veronica Bennett struck me as exactly the type to use litigation as a weapon, regardless of the merits of her case. Oaklight had the resources, and the current board, under her influence, probably wouldn't hesitate to use them against a perceived threat, especially one who had walked away with so much institutional knowledge and so many key relationships. "What if I don't approach any of their clients directly, Ben?" I asked, an idea forming. "What if I just become available? Let word of mouth do its work?" Benjamin smiled, a slow, knowing smile. "Now, Garrett," he said, "that's a different story entirely. If clients choose to terminate their relationship with Oaklight for their own reasons, and then subsequently seek out your independent services because of your established reputation and expertise, well, that's much harder for Oaklight to legally interfere with." The next day, I filed the necessary paperwork to establish Walsh Publishing Consultants. No flashy website, no aggressive marketing materials, no direct outreach campaign to any of my former Oaklight clients. Just a simple legal entity that could accept payments and provide professional services. 3 days later, Thomas Franklin called me. "Garrett, I hear you've officially set up shop," he said, without any preamble. News, it seemed, still traveled fast in our close-knit business. "In this business, Thomas, it's like wildfire," I replied, chuckling. "Listen," he continued, his tone shifting to business, "I urgently need some help with our winter catalog strategy. Oaklight's new digital engagement team is pushing us hard towards academic markets, trying to get us to invest heavily in their new online platforms. But my gut and our early sales data says we should be doubling down on our successful historical fiction series. I need someone who understands both the numbers and the nuances of the readers, someone I trust, you." "I'm still figuring out my next steps, Thomas," I said, genuinely hesitant. The shadow of that non-compete, however flawed, still loomed. $15,000, Garrett, Thomas countered immediately. "For 2 months of high-level strategic guidance, no direct sales representation, no direct competition with Oaklight's current service offerings. Just you, your brain, helping us make good, informed decisions. It's purely advisory." It was a generous offer and very carefully structured, clearly designed by Thomas to avoid any direct conflict with the terms of my non-compete. But still, I hesitated. The thought of a protracted legal battle with Oaklight was daunting. "Don't think too long, Garrett," Thomas said gently. We're making some critical decisions by the end of next week. After hanging up with Thomas, I received an unexpected call from Jacob, my former assistant director at Oaklight, the young man I had been grooming to eventually take my place. "Garrett, can we meet?" he asked, his voice hushed, almost furtive. "Not at the office, obviously. Someplace quiet, off the beaten path?" We agreed on a small, independent coffee shop near Eagle Creek Park, well away from the downtown business district and the usual publishing scene hangouts. Jacob looked nervous when he arrived, constantly checking over his shoulder, his eyes darting around the sparsely populated cafe. "It's bad, Garrett," he said, once we'd secured a quiet corner table, his voice barely above a whisper. "They officially promoted me to your old position, but I'm just a figurehead, a placeholder. All the real decisions, all the client strategy, it's all coming directly from Veronica's new digital team, those consultants from San Francisco, Pkitsi." "That's not entirely surprising, Jacob," I replied, trying to keep my expression neutral. "No, you don't understand, Garrett," he insisted, leaning in closer. "They're systematically dismantling everything you built. They've reassigned all your major accounts, Franklin Press, Riverstone, all of them, to the new digital team, who have no relationship with these publishers, no understanding of their specific needs or history. They're implementing a mandatory new CRM system that none of the older, experienced sales reps can even navigate. It's chaos. 3 more people from our old team quit just yesterday." I took a slow sip of my coffee, processing his words. "And the clients, Jacob? How are they reacting?" He glanced around again, then leaned in even closer, his voice dropping further. "They're furious, Garrett. Absolutely furious. Eleanor Jenkins at Riverstone is threatening to pull their entire multi-million-dollar account. Thomas Franklin hasn't returned a single call from his new account manager in over a week. The internal quarterly sales projections, they're catastrophic. And Veronica? She's blaming it all on the transition, calling it expected turbulence. She's completely delusional." He hesitated for a moment, then his expression grew even more concerned. "But there's more, Garrett. They're watching you. Oaklight Legal had a high-level meeting about your non-compete agreement yesterday. They're deeply concerned you might try to poach clients. They're actively looking for any excuse to come after you." Now I understood his paranoia, his secrecy. He was risking his new, albeit figurehead, position to warn me. "Thanks for telling me this, Jacob," I said, genuinely grateful. "I appreciate the heads up." He nodded, then slid a plain manila envelope across the table towards me. "Client contact list," he whispered. "Completely updated. Personal emails, direct cell numbers for all the key decision-makers, the ones Veronica doesn't have." He stood to leave, his mission accomplished. "I didn't give you this, Garrett, and we never met today." After he left, I sat there for a long time, turning the unopened envelope over and over in my hands. Using this information, this gift from Jacob, would be exactly what Oaklight's lawyers feared, exactly what they expected. It would be the ammunition they needed to justify aggressive legal action against me, and possibly even against Jacob if they ever found out. They had set a trap, anticipating my most likely next move, which meant, I realized with a sudden clarity, that I needed to make a completely different one. I left the envelope on the table, untouched, when I walked out of the coffee shop. A month passed, a month of quiet deliberation, of carefully weighing my options. I hadn't contacted any of my former Oaklight Publishing clients, despite the almost daily calls I received from anxious publishers asking for help, for guidance, for a lifeline back to the way things used to be. I deflected politely, citing professional considerations and the ongoing complexities of my departure from Oaklight. The non-compete agreement might be legally flawed, as Benjamin had assured me, but I wasn't yet ready to test its limits in court, not without a more compelling reason, a clearer path. Instead, I focused my energies on building a different kind of network. I reached out to industry contacts outside Oaklight's immediate client list, small independent publishers across the Midwest, university presses with niche academic lists, literary agents looking for guidance on navigating the changing publishing landscape. It was piecemeal work, smaller consulting gigs, projects that wouldn't trigger any legal alarm bells with Oaklight, but would keep me engaged, connected, and, most importantly, thinking strategically about the future of the industry I loved. Then came the invitation I hadn't expected, the one that changed everything. Harold Blackwood, the esteemed chairman of Oaklight Publishing's board of directors, requested a private meeting. Not at the Oaklight offices, he'd specified, but at his exclusive club downtown. I accepted, driven more by curiosity than anything else. The Indianapolis Gentlemen's Association was a relic of a bygone era. All dark, polished wood, hushed conversations, and the faint scent of old leather and expensive cigars. Harold, a man in his early 70s, silver-haired and impeccably dressed, waited for me in a private, book-lined room. 2 tumblers of amber scotch, already poured and resting on the antique side table between 2 deep leather armchairs. "Thank you for coming, Garrett," he said, his voice a low rumble as he gestured to the chair opposite his. "I imagine you're wondering why I wanted to meet." "The thought had crossed my mind, Harold," I replied, settling into the surprisingly comfortable armchair. He pushed one of the glasses of scotch towards me. I took a small, appreciative sip. "Things at Oaklight Publishing," Harold began, his gaze direct and unflinching, "are not going as expected. In fact," he corrected himself, "they are going quite disastrously." I said nothing, merely raised an eyebrow, waiting for him to continue. "Revenue is down 38% this quarter compared to last year, Garrett," Harold stated, his voice devoid of emotion. "Client retention has fallen to its lowest point in the company's 50-year history. And the much-vaunted digital initiative, the one that was supposed to transform our business model and propel us into the future, it has instead systematically alienated our core client base and decimated our sales pipeline." "That's unfortunate," I replied neutrally, taking another sip of scotch. Harold studied me for a long moment, his shrewd eyes missing nothing. "You don't seem surprised, Garrett." "Publishing is a relationship business, Harold," I said simply. "It always has been, it always will be." "So I'm learning," he conceded with a grimace. He leaned forward, his expression growing more intense. "The board of directors is concerned, Garrett. Deeply concerned about Veronica Bennett's leadership. Her strategies, her approach. They may have worked in the tech sector in San Francisco, but publishing, as you rightly point out, operates on a different set of principles." "Why are you telling me this, Harold?" I asked, though a suspicion was already beginning to form in my mind. "Because, Garrett," he said, his voice dropping slightly, "we'd like you to come back to Oaklight Publishing as Chief Revenue Officer, a newly created position reporting directly to the board, effectively above Veronica Bennett in the operational hierarchy." I stared at him, processing the audacity of the offer. "What about my previous replacement, Jacob?" I asked. "He was promoted to your old role." "Jacob's a good man, a loyal employee," Harold acknowledged. "But he doesn't have your depth of client relationships, your industry knowledge, your unique ability to close complex deals. He's out of his depth, and he knows it." "And Veronica?" I pressed. "She would accept this arrangement? Me, reporting to the board, effectively superseding her authority in all sales and client matters?" Harold's expression hardened, a flash of steel in his usually calm eyes. "Ms. Bennett," he said, his voice clipped, "would have no choice in the matter. The board is prepared to make that abundantly clear to her." The pieces of the puzzle suddenly clicked into place, forming a clear, if somewhat cynical, picture. "This isn't just about this quarter's disastrous revenue figures, is it, Harold?" I said, looking him straight in the eye. "This situation, this crisis, it's been building for longer than that, hasn't it?" Harold sighed, the carefully constructed facade of the powerful chairman cracking for a moment, revealing the weary, worried man beneath. "Veronica Bennett," he admitted, "was essentially William Oakenlight's hire. His last major executive decision before his illness became unmanageable, The board had significant reservations about her lack of publishing experience even then, but we deferred to William out of respect for him, for his father's legacy. After he passed, we felt obligated to give her the opportunity to prove herself. He paused, swirling the scotch in his glass. She hasn't. And my termination, Harold? I asked quietly. Was that decision approved by the full board? No, he admitted, his gaze dropping to his glass. We were informed after the fact, presented with it as a fait accompli by Mrs. Bennet. As we were with several other significant organizational changes she implemented without board consultation. I sat back, the full, unvarnished picture now painfully clear. Veronica Bennet hadn't just been implementing a new digital strategy. She had been systematically clearing out William Oaklight's people, the old guard, replacing them with her own loyalists, consolidating her power base. My dismissal wasn't fundamentally about digital transformation or outdated methods. It was about removing anyone perceived as loyal to the previous leadership, anyone who might question her increasingly autocratic control. The offer is generous, Garrett, Harold continued, his voice regaining some of its earlier firmness. Double your previous salary, full autonomous control of all sales and client relationship divisions, and the board's unequivocal, full backing to rebuild your team, your way. It was everything I should have wanted. Vindication, power, financial security, the chance to reclaim what had been unjustly taken. I need some time to consider your offer, Harold, I said finally. Of course, he replied. But don't take too long, Garrett. The situation at Oaklight is deteriorating rapidly. We need to act decisively, and soon. On the drive home from that smoke-filled, scotch-infused meeting, I turned the conversation over and over in my mind. The board hadn't just suddenly realized they'd made a mistake with my termination. They'd likely known it was wrong, or at least incredibly risky, from the very beginning, but had lacked the courage, or perhaps the consensus, to stop Veronica then. Now that it was directly, catastrophically affecting their bottom line, their stock price, suddenly they wanted me back. And there was something else, something Harold hadn't said explicitly, but that I'd understood with chilling clarity between the lines of his carefully chosen words. They wanted me to be their hatchet man. They wanted me to come back and systematically dismantle everything Veronica Bennet had built, to undo her changes, and eventually to orchestrate her own departure. They didn't truly want me for my relationship skills or my deep understanding of the publishing industry. They wanted me for my client list, for the revenue and stability that came with it, and for the loyalty those clients held for me personally. The realization didn't make me angry. It made me absolutely certain about what I needed to do next. I declined Harold Blackwood's offer from Oaklight Publishing the next morning with a brief, polite email. His response came within minutes, an even more generous compensation package, additional stock options, a seat on the board. I didn't reply. Instead, I made 3 phone calls that would change the course of my career, and perhaps, in a small way, the landscape of Midwest publishing. The first call was to Thomas Franklin of Franklin Press. Thomas, I said, I'm ready to discuss that consulting arrangement we talked about, but I'd like to suggest a slightly different approach. I'm listening, Garrett, he replied, his interest clearly piqued. I won't consult exclusively for Franklin Press, I explained. Instead, I'm forming a new kind of entity, a collective, perhaps a consortium of independent publishers. Publishers who share resources, distribution channels, market intelligence, and a commitment to quality. No long-term, restrictive contracts, no cumbersome corporate bureaucracy, just good publishers helping good publishers thrive, with me facilitating the connections, providing the strategic oversight. There was a moment of silence on the line. Then, how many others have you approached with this idea, Garrett? None yet, Thomas, I admitted. You're the first call. Why me? He asked. Because Franklin Press was my biggest client at Oaklight? No, I corrected him gently. Because I trust your judgment, Thomas. Because you understand the heart of this business. If you think this consortium model is a viable, sustainable approach, I'll move forward with it. If not, I'll just stick to traditional individual consulting. Thomas didn't hesitate. I'm in, Garrett, and I know at least 5 other independent publishers, good ones, who would jump at the chance to be part of something like this, something that gives us leverage against the big conglomerates without sacrificing our autonomy. My second call was to Eleanor Jenkins at Riverstone Press. As I expected, she not only embraced the consortium idea enthusiastically, but immediately began suggesting insightful refinements to the structure, including a shared digital platform that would give the smaller, independent publishers the reach and marketing power of a much larger organization without them losing their unique identities or editorial control. The third call was to Benjamin Weiss, my attorney, to ensure the entire plan, this new cooperative structure, wouldn't inadvertently violate the, albeit flawed, terms of my Oaklight non-compete agreement. You're not working for their former clients, Garrett, Benjamin confirmed after hearing the details. You're creating an entirely new, independent entity that their former clients, among others, are choosing to join and collaborate with. It's a subtle distinction, perhaps, but a legally meaningful one. Within 2 weeks, the Walsh Publishing Consortium had 7 founding members, all highly respected independent publishers, all former Oaklight Publishing clients who had either already left Oaklight due to dissatisfaction with Veronica Bennett's changes, or were actively planning to when their existing contracts expired. Each member contributed a modest sum to an operational fund that would cover my salary and the basic infrastructure needed to get the consortium off the ground. The key to our plan wasn't just about building a competing organization. It was about creating something Oaklight, with its top-down corporate structure and obsession with digital metrics over human connection, couldn't easily replicate. A cooperative, collaborative structure where independent publishers maintained their autonomy while gaining the significant benefits of collective resources, shared knowledge, and unified market presence. No one appointed me CEO or gave me a fancy title. I was simply the facilitator, the connector, the strategist who understood what each member publisher needed and who in the consortium could provide it. We rented a modest office space in the Broad Ripple neighborhood of Indianapolis, deliberately away from the downtown business district where Oaklight and other corporate publishers clustered. I hired just 2 essential staff members to start: a bright recent college graduate to handle communications and social media for the consortium, and a veteran publishing operations manager who had recently retired but wasn't quite ready to stop working entirely. Word spread quickly through the close-knit Midwest publishing community. By the end of our first month, 3 more independent publishers had joined the consortium. By the end of the second month, we had to expand into larger office space to accommodate our growing team and activities. I was careful, always, never to directly solicit Oaklight's existing clients. I didn't need to. They came to us, drawn by the success stories they were hearing from our founding members, and driven by their own mounting frustrations with Oaklight's impersonal, digital-first approach that consistently ignored the personal relationships and nuanced understanding that had always been the heart of successful publishing. Jacob, my former assistant director at Oaklight, called one evening in late September, about 2 months after we'd officially launched the consortium. "They know what you're doing, Garrett," he said without preamble, his voice hushed. "Veronica's furious. She's been in meetings with legal all day. She's talking about aggressive legal action, about making an example of you and the publishers who joined you." "We haven't violated any agreements, Jacob," I replied calmly. "That won't stop her from trying," he warned. He paused. "There's a board meeting scheduled for tomorrow, Garrett. The quarterly results are going to be presented. It's going to be ugly." "That's not my concern anymore, Jacob," I said gently. "I know," he replied, "but—" he hesitated. "I thought you should know. And I also wanted to ask, Garrett, is there room for one more at your new venture? I've reached my breaking point here at Oaklight." I smiled to myself. Everything was proceeding almost exactly as I'd quietly anticipated. Not because I was seeking revenge, but because I understood the fundamental flaws in Veronica Bennett's approach. An approach that prioritized abstract digital metrics over the tangible value of human relationships and deep industry knowledge. "Come by the office tomorrow morning, Jacob," I told him. "We'll talk." The Oaklight Publishing quarterly earnings call in October told the story the numbers never lie about. They reported a staggering 45% drop in revenue compared to the same quarter the previous year. Their stock plummeted 17% in a single day of trading. I didn't listen to the call myself. I was in a strategy meeting with 15 consortium members, planning our collective approach to the upcoming Midwest Booksellers Association conference in Chicago. But Thomas Franklin texted me the highlights, Veronica blaming unforeseen market disruption and transitional challenges. No mention of the elephant in the room, that their biggest, most profitable clients had jumped ship to a new model. Later that afternoon, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. "Is this Garrett Walsh?" a woman's voice asked, formal and clipped. "Speaking," I replied. "This is Patricia Harrington from the Oaklight Publishing Board of Directors, Mr. Walsh. I'm calling to inform you that, at our meeting this morning, the board voted to waive your non-compete agreement, effective immediately. We've also instructed our legal team to not prepare a cease and desist regarding what some had previously considered potential interference with our client relationships." I waited, letting the silence stretch, sensing there was more. "Do you have any response, Mr. Walsh?" Ms. Harrington finally asked. "Just one question, Ms. Harrington," I said. "Have you or any of your board members actually spoken directly with your former clients recently? Not through your account managers or via customer satisfaction surveys. Have you actually sat down with Thomas Franklin or Eleanor Jenkins and asked them, face-to-face, why they chose to leave Oaklight?" "That's not relevant to this specific communication, Mr. Walsh," she began, but I interrupted. "With all due respect, Ms. Harrington, it's the only thing that's relevant. They didn't leave because I started something new. They left because Oaklight Publishing, under its current leadership, stopped valuing what mattered most to them: partnership, understanding, and trust." There was another long silence on the line, so long this time I thought the call had actually dropped. "I see," she said finally, her voice softer now, almost weary. And then she hung up. The threatened cease and desist, of course, never arrived. 3 days later, the business section of the Indianapolis Star ran a prominent headline: Oaklight Publishing CEO steps down amid financial turbulence and strategic missteps. 6 months after starting the Walsh Publishing Consortium, we moved into beautiful, permanent offices in a renovated, historic warehouse in the vibrant Fountain Square district of Indianapolis. We now had 23 member publishers, with a waiting list of others eager to join. We'd expanded beyond Indiana, now including small and mid-sized independent publishers throughout the entire Midwest. The industry had truly taken notice. We'd been featured in Publishers Weekly and even in a small piece in the New York Times business section. The Relationship Revolution: How a Midwestern Consortium is Redefining Publishing Success, one particularly insightful headline had called it. I hadn't set out to create a movement, only to preserve what I knew worked, what I believed in. But sometimes, the old ways, the human ways, become revolutionary all over again when people start to remember why they mattered so profoundly in the first place. Harold Blackwood called me on a Tuesday morning, about a year after my initial conversation with him at the Gentlemen's Club. Oaklight Publishing had a new CEO now, someone promoted from within their editorial ranks, someone who had been with the company for decades, someone who understood books. "Garrett," Harold said, his voice surprisingly upbeat, "we'd like to formally discuss the possibility of Oaklight Publishing joining your consortium." No preamble, straight to the point. I smiled to myself. "That's not really how it works, Harold," I explained gently. "We're not structured to acquire or absorb members of your current size and complexity." "Perhaps," he countered, "a different kind of partnership arrangement then? A strategic alliance?" "I'll bring it to our leadership council for discussion, Harold," I told him, though I already knew what their answer would likely be. The independent publishers. who had joined us, had done so precisely to escape the kind of top-down corporate approach that Oaklight, even under new leadership, still largely represented. After hanging up, I walked through our open, collaborative office space. No executive suite for me. I had a simple desk among the others, where I could be part of the daily conversations, the creative energy that kept us all connected to what truly mattered. Jacob, now our indispensable director of operations, looked up from his workstation as I passed. "Everything okay, Garrett?" "Just fine, Jacob," I nodded. "Oaklight Publishing wants to join the consortium." He laughed, a genuine, unrestrained laugh. "Talk about coming full circle, boss." Later that afternoon, I drove out to Eagle Creek Park and sat by the water, the same spot where I used to come and think when the problems at Oaklight seemed overwhelming, when the corporate politics felt suffocating. But today, there were no problems to solve, no battles to fight. Just a quiet, profound satisfaction in knowing that what I'd built, what we had built together, would last. Not because it was revolutionary or disruptive in a flashy, tech-driven way, but because it was built on something timeless, something that never really changes, people trusting people who've earned that trust, working together for a shared purpose. Sometimes getting fired, I reflected, is the best thing that can happen to you. Not because it leads to some grand revenge, but because it forces you, sometimes against your will, to build something more authentic, more meaningful, more you, than what you ever thought possible when you were comfortably ensconced in what you left behind. Thank you for joining us for Garrett Walsh's story of reinvention and the enduring power of genuine relationships. If his journey resonated with you, please share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. We love hearing from our community. And don't forget to subscribe to Life Stories 1 and hit that notification bell so you're always the first to know when we release our next story of real-life challenges and triumphs. Your support is what keeps our stories going.